For me to survive was just plain luck and circumstances, to be at the right spot at the right moment. But you didn't know it ahead of time many times. It's only at the end of the day you say, gee, I made it because of this thing happened or so on. Many times it just happened by accident surviving. Yeah. Basically, the majority didn't survive. Like when I wrote the book, I called it Shithouse Luck, and it was, every day was shithouse luck. And just surviving sometimes was a miracle. Yeah. Mostly, actually. When you woke up in the morning, you didn't expect to see the evening. It all started when I went over to my friend Bernard's house. When I arrived at Bernard's house, his door was ajar. I opened it and was shocked when I saw an SS officer pointing a gun at poor Bernard. Worse than that was that this officer was the same one that had been at my house the week before looking for my friend Claude, whom I had hid from them, and worse yet, the Nazi officer recognized me. You see, Bernard was no spy, but I, at only 17, I was. I had been working as a runner for the French resistance. When the Gestapo officer took my identity papers and put them in his breast pocket, I knew I was in for it. Both Bernard and I were arrested and taken to the Drancy internment camp in Paris.
They had a lot of people.
And it was there that I began my journey into the Holocaust. And it was there that I met my first love, my dear Stella.
I hadn't seen those before. The Russian walked out. Oh, the poor people. Oh, bastards. Gas chambers. Oh boy. All those kids. That's the survivors. They're the fucking Nazis. Goddamn bastards. This is, again, no, this is a Lincoln. The other one was a Buick, this is a Lincoln, and that's my mother in front of it. It's a 1940 Lincoln. We had two cars, yeah, and my Cocker Spaniel, Diana. I don't know what the other pictures are. Well, that's me, or I, however. This, I don't know, it's a waterfall somewhere. And that is a little picture of my dad when he was a young man. And let me see. Oh yeah, that picture was taken before the First World War, maybe in the early 1900, like 1910 or so. Just the war started in 14, and that was taken just before that time. And she's my mother. The father, you never know.
My dad had total disdain for Germany.
That one plant that looks like it needs a hairdo. Did you see that?
No, my uncle's not angry at all towards those guys. Where my dad, he would have to go to the German consulate every so often, and I would have to drive him when I finally had my driver's license, because he would actually be in cold sweats going in there. Like, to him, that was talking to the Gestapo. He wouldn't do it. Pierre didn't have a problem going to the German consulate. It's interesting how the two, they were totally polar opposite.
What does it say? Out of New York exhibition.
He's just a collector. You know, the alley is his treasure trove. He's out there all the time, you know, checking out to see what people have put out there. If you go over there, he will tell, you know, there's been times when I've gone over there and he would, let me show you what's in the alley. Are you sure you can't use it? You know, it's always wanting to repurpose, or, you know, it's good stuff, you know.
No, an alley can be a gold mine, because you never know what you, in the morning when I go, what did anybody drop in the evening? And many times I find something like that. And I didn't even look between the garbage can. There's some kind of an instrument there. And I'm going to take a look. Who knows what it is?
I first heard about Pierre from my dad, who worked with him in the film industry for a really long time. And growing up, I always would hear my dad talk about him and his stories, but it didn't really click for me until I was an adult. And just a few, maybe 5 years ago, my dad had asked if I could help him locate his friend Pierre that he used to work with that was the Holocaust survivor. So I took to the internet and found a phone number and found an address. That's how their friendship was rekindled, and then through that I was really eager to meet Pierre and hear his stories. I would go for several months. I would go every week, and I would sit down with him and we would have coffee, and I would ask him to tell me his stories about the Holocaust. And I started a Facebook thing on my Facebook page called Lunch with Pierre, and every time I would have these sit downs with him, I would tell his stories to my friends via Facebook. So that is how
Amazing.
It first started with him.
I mean, just like that, I don't see anything wrong with it right now. Even though it's nice to have that hose for something. Yeah.
He just doesn't take anything for granted. I mean, he's been the hungriest that anyone could ever be for the longest amount of time without dying that is possible. And so he lives his life assuming it could happen again, and that this meal could be his last, something could happen, and he would be so thankful that he kept these things. I think he looks at every single thing in life as having an alternate use. So when he was in the camps, if he could have gotten his hands on this mug, he could have turned that mug into a sharp thing that he could have broken off and used for something and used for something else. And I think he looks at every single thing in life as multiple ways of using it and things that he can do with it. And he's a machinist in his mind always, so he's constantly thinking of creating and what he can make and do and use it for. And He's very creative in his thinking. So we look at a piece of paper that can just be thrown in the trash, and he looks at so many things. He could fold it a certain way. He could use it as a napkin if he needed to. He could write something down. He could use it to hold his place in a book. He could use, there are a million things that he could use that piece of paper for. So why in the world would you throw it away?
It may have. He's always been very resourceful. His mind works kind of different than everyone else's. It's more Rube Goldberg. So, he could come up with things to make something work that you would never think of. So yeah, it may have had something to do with Germany.
I sat next to Stella's father on the bus to Drancy. I, of course, noticed the pretty Stella right away. She sat across from us with her mother. They told us there was a scarlet fever epidemic in the prison. The commandant asked if any of us had had scarlet fever before. Stella and I both raised our hands. As luck would have it, they needed us alive to treat the patients. This kept me and Stella from being shipped to the death camps right away.
Walking up Pierre Street that he lived on 70 years ago when he
Yeah, that house existed.
That's the same house. Don't fall down the hill, please.
You said your house was
Remember I told you that one?
Uh-huh.
What?
Yeah, it is.
That's your house?
But it also kept Stella's parents there with us. It was the first of many lucky breaks.
It looks like they may have made it into...
Stella and I worked together there for 2 months, and it was there that we fell in love. Stella, like most of the inmates at Drancy, was Jewish. I was Christian.
So they haven't changed the color?
Wait a minute. Oh, hey.
Yeah?
Villa.
Oh, there it is.
See that?
Yeah.
When Stella and I finally made love, she said to me that
What's the name of your house?
at least she would not die a virgin.
Yeah?
We do have.
I tried to convince her that she was going to live a long time. Later I would find out how difficult survival was for what we call the Yellow Stars, the Jewish prisoners.
It was lower. I had a door here. That's where Claude was caught, right here.
The sound of cinders crunching under boots made me stiffen. Someone rattled a chain, then the door did open. Frigid air burst in. Raus! Wollt ihr raus? Alles raus, verfluchte Hunde! Get out, everyone out, you goddamn dogs! An SS guard brandishing a truncheon climbed into the car and began swinging and kicking to stampede us out.
I jumped and landed in a small half-frozen gully. Human beings were cascading out of the cars pell-mell and floundered in the mud and snow like netted fish. I heard a loudspeaker snapping orders in German. I thought I must find Stella, but I couldn't make her out in the fog. Men over 50 line up with the women and children. Leave your belongings behind. They will be returned to you after the delousing process, the loudspeaker said. That was the first big lie they told us.
Yeah, I came from France on a train when we stopped in Auschwitz, and I had never heard of it before. Yeah. But it was the biggest camp and maybe the most famous of all the German camps.